another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and we're here to talk about another position group ahead of the NFL season. We're going through our top 10 list, trying to get through kind of as many positions as we can. We've done quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. We did, I think, edge rushers was our last one. So now we're going through our interior defensive linemen, some defensive tackles today, doing our top 10 with some honorable mentions, of course. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing very well. It's been a while since I've seen you guys because of your trip to New Orleans. I tried to hold it down on this front. Didn't do the greatest job, honestly, but got a Carson Beck video out with audio in one ear for everybody. So I'm glad to have the support of my esteemed co-hosts instead of trying to run Stay Hot by myself for a week. But it's all good. It's all good. I've been keeping busy. I played some basketball this morning. I had a cucumber lime Gatorade.
That's fun.
My good friend Gus put me on that, and that's got to be the best flavor. So
yeah,
I like orange. The New Orleans trip was fun. I mean, I mostly missed Theo. That really put a damper on it all.
I'm sure.
But I learned something crazy.
Oh, God.
I mean, this is an insane fact. I've known Blaiden for 10 years.
Oh boy, an insane Blaiden, an previously unknown Blaiden fact. I'm on the edge of my seat.
And I've known him, and I haven't realized this, and it's crazy I haven't. Blaiden has never had caffeine, ever.
Never had caffeine, ever.
And I went back and I was thinking, how could I have not realized this? How could I not know this? And it's because partially, number one, I guess I'm not paying that close attention to what you're eating. We've never talked about it. But the other part is that when someone will offer you something like a coffee, for instance, you don't say, no, I don't drink coffee, or no, I don't have caffeine. You'll say, I don't like coffee. As if you've had it and you've decided you don't like it at all. Now, I don't think you probably would like coffee, but I thought that was insane to avoid caffeine.
I've had like coffee flavored hot chocolate before, and that was nasty.
You've never been to Starbucks and like ordered a drink?
This is what I'm saying. You've never had a soda?
I don't drink dark soda. I've had Sprite, Sierra Mist, and 7-Up, all of which are caffeine free.
You've never had a Coke? This cannot be.
I've never had Coke.
That's what I'm saying, right? Like,
I've never had Coke. As a child, I never drank dark soda. I was just like not interested.
And this is what kills me. The idea is that it's through like no moral, like, well, I don't do that, or I don't want to do that. It's just like I'm just not interested.
And now it's to the point where I can't because I've done it. I have to like hold myself to that standard now.
I mean,
you know what? My first reaction to that is to get angry. But
exactly, that's how I felt too, dude.
But now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, what is there to be mad at, man? I just, you're probably better off for it, man. So good for you, I suppose.
You're only missing out on things that are not good for you. Like coffee, it's not bad for you, but it's not really like good for you. And like being dependent on caffeine is not great. Dark soda, not good for you at all. So like, it's not a big deal, but it is wild to go your whole life without having any of those. And this is why when we go out to drink all through college, you're a vodka lemonade guy. You never had a rum and Coke. I'm like, I guess that's just what he prefers. No, it's because you won't have caffeine at all.
Yeah,
it is what he prefers.
And I went to a school where the most popular drink is a trash can, which is like 4 shots of like assorted liquor and then a Red Bull.
Oh, that's true.
I've never had one of those either.
Wow.
Energy drinks, I mean, they could be cracked sometimes. Like when you're really tired and like driving, an energy drink hits. But again, good not to ingest them on a regular basis. But I do think you should expand your horizons and maybe try.
Expand my horizons.
I agree.
Maybe next time you're in a hotel, like go down to the continental breakfast and pour yourself a cup of Joe. I almost guarantee you'll hate it, actually, but you should at least try. Coffee is like an adult drink, like it tastes.
Yeah, so
like
you probably wouldn't like it very much.
It's it doesn't have any sugar
And what's
in it.
crazy,
At least
the way we
originally.
found out about this is my girlfriend and I were at the airport flying to this trip, and she went to Starbucks and got a strawberry refresher, and she asked if I wanted some, and I was like, is there caffeine in it? And she was like, I think maybe, and I was like, then I don't want it. So,
I just don't know how I didn't realize it when I feel like that's something that you have to pretty actively avoid. And I think I question how many people in the US are active like drinkers. Like they'll drink alcohol. Not saying that you go crazy, but like you'll go out and you'll drink, but will not have caffeine and aren't like, it isn't like religious at all.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it has to be a very, very small number.
I don't know. I feel like it's not that hard because I mostly just drink water. That's really
it's
what
not
it comes
that hard. It's not that it's difficult. Well, maybe it's a little difficult, but like it's interesting.
Never having
to go
a
out of your way
Coca-Cola
to do
is
it.
crazy. Like that is legitimately crazy. It's not hard to avoid it if you don't like it. Like I'm sure there's some soda I've never had, right? But for it to be Coke, like you've never been like, oh, I wonder what I want today when you're looking at the like fountain drink station and you're like, I'm gonna mix it up. This doesn't happen to Blaiden. You never mix it up, man.
And this is why I've never had caffeine.
My whole life is
never mix it up.
consistent. You're Shea Gilgeous Alexander. Your whole life is consistent.
That's true. You don't mix it up a ton, Blaiden. No disrespect.
I don't.
I
have 4 toaster waffles for breakfast almost every single day.
There's got to be something. There's got to be something with caffeine. I'm sure it's hit your bloodstream at some point, like a microplastic, just like it's in everybody somehow. But I don't know. That is a little bit crazy. But let's move on. How was the New Orleans trip? What did you guys? Did you have like beignets? Did you go out to the swamps? Did you listen to a bunch of jazz? Like what was on the itinerary?
We're not you, bro. We didn't go to the swamps.
You didn't go to the swamps.
We spent
that was
0
the
seconds
second thing
swamps.
he said was the swamps. What?
Like the bayou? I don't know.
No, we were in like the French Quarter area, so we mostly walked around and
tried the food. I think seafood gumbo probably got to be top 5. And I'm not saying that as a saying. I really think that might be one of the 5 best foods we've ever come up with, man. I've had enough now. I think maybe just gumbo in general is probably, S tier, like about as good as it gets.
Let's go. I've only had it like once or twice, but it is
that's
fire.
the boat I was in. And then I was like, I really liked it last time, and I got it, and I really liked it again, and I got it again. I'm like, dang. It might not just be those places. It might just be gumbo is like that. So I feel strongly about that. The beignets, we went to Cafe Du Monde. They're okay.
Yep.
They taste like funnel cakes.
They kind of taste like funnel cakes.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we only had them there, so maybe it's just like that one place, or maybe there's more to them.
They're just a little treat. It's a good scene at that cafe. Usually they've got like bands.
I was saying that is one of the few spaces where I would feel like socially acceptable to just go there alone and just like sit there and chill. Like,
what are you on this? There's a million places where it's okay to just sit and chill alone.
Okay,
like,
I would argue
where
it's not okay to sit and chill alone.
I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like if I went to
Applebee's is one place where it's not okay.
Yeah, like that's what I think. I'm thinking like if I'm going to a restaurant style place, like most of the time I feel like I should be there with someone. But Cafe Du Monde, I was like, I feel like I could go here alone and just get like some beignets and chill.
Yeah, that's the case with most like breakfast places, but most breakfast places are coffee shops, and you wouldn't know anything about that. Would you sit at a coffee shop like by yourself with like a laptop working? No. So like every dinner you've ever had is like a family affair.
I don't drink coffee. I don't know what you.
Would you go to a movie by yourself?
I think maybe. It depends on the movie.
A lot of people are weird about that.
if it's a franchise that I care a lot about, like if a new Star Wars came out and no one was around for me to go with, I would go see it.
I don't know. I'd feel, but I'd probably be too anxious about it. I don't think there's anything weird. I could just imagine myself like standing in line for popcorn by myself, thumbs in my pockets, sort of looking around.
Thumbs in your pockets.
I just so I don't know.
Specific, man.
Thumbs in your pockets. Yeah, you don't have to put them there. You can check your phone.
But that's the problem.
Hand behind your head.
Yeah, then I'd start like being like I'm being with my hands, and I'd put them on my hips, and I'm like, nah, that's too aggressive. Then I put them.
Someone takes a picture of you and says "Spawn Hour." No
I run
date
over to
with
him,
him.
delete that, dude. Delete that. I'm not kidding. Yeah. So no, you can't go to a movie alone. Is what I'm trying to say.
I might go to a movie alone. I might go see Mad Max Fury Road here very, very soon. Or not Fury Road, Furiosa very soon here by myself.
Yes.
Because my girlfriend saw the
Fury
first
Road
one and
is-
thought it
is
was
your
mid.
favorite.
I love Mad Max Fury Road. I have not seen Furiosa yet, but I'm excited. But
There you go.
maybe I convince her to go.
Yeah, we
I
also
thought
saw
New
some
Orleans-
beautiful houses.
Yes, the house. I thought it was very nice. I thought it was very good. It was warm. The food was mostly very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see
it was
anybody
warm.
crazy? I remember going and there were like guys on stilts with like snakes all over them on Bourbon Street.
We didn't. I guess we didn't see anybody crazy who it wasn't like. I think there's probably something wrong with this person. I mean, like to be completely honest, like we did see
Yeah.
somebody when we got there who was like freaking out, but in Joker makeup. Like
Really?
honest to God, yes, and that was pretty nuts. But most of that was, it wasn't like we saw anybody too nuts.
Saw someone freaking out in Joker makeup. That was
Yeah.
Derek Carr.
But there were a lot of friendly people down there,
Yeah.
and we went out to Bourbon Street a few times, and it was a good time. So I thought it was mostly pretty good. I thought it was mostly pretty cool.
Excellent, excellent. Did you watch any of the Western Conference or Eastern Conference finals when you were down there? Did you watch the Anthony Edwards disaster class, Matt?
I got a little bit of it. I won't lie, like I haven't been making videos for the last week because I don't know. I just
vacation?
wasn't gonna I was on vacation. I was just chilling and relaxing.
We were
and
watching
focused
Love
on
is
other things.
Blind, you know?
We did watch some Love is Blind. That's true, which is a hilarious show that I have takes on. But I did see some of it. I did watch a little bit in the car ride back. I mean, I kind of agree with everybody's sort of stance on the Ant play. And there's going to be another game tonight. So maybe this is all wrong and he drops 50 because he said, I'm coming out different. But he also said that before in game 7 and then didn't come out different at all. He's just got to be a little bit more aggressive, and he's got to do a better job handling when he gets a lot of attention thrown his way. He's not the greatest passer in the world, and it is a weakness that matters. A lot of the top guys who win championships, the number ones on teams, they're really strong passers. Anthony Edwards, I'm not saying he's like a terrible one, but he's certainly not the level of a lot of the top guys. Like he's not some, like Luka or whoever, somebody like that. So it's going to come down. It's going to come down mostly to that. And you got to get more out of Karl Anthony Towns, and you got to find
Definitely.
a way to slow down Luka and Kyrie.
Who's the youngest player to ever lead their team to the finals? Like, that's kind of what I was thinking.
To the finals or win the finals?
To the finals, because if they win this series, that is just so huge for the state of Minnesota that I think that it kind of counts.
Oh, yeah. Getting to the finals means something. I'm trying to think. Well, Wade won it in year 3 in 06. And that was a lot of Wade really did a lot of work there. And Shaq was not playing necessarily his best, most consistent ball by 2006. Shoot, I had somebody else in my LeBron did it at this age in 2007. But that was a much weaker path that he had to the finals. But also he had a much weaker team around him than Anthony Edwards does.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson. Larry Bird, maybe, those guys. But they were on very, very good teams from the jump. Although Edwards is on a good team.
Yeah, I thought that that was kind of the main thing, was just the inexperience started to show up. He hasn't seen it all a million times yet, so. he's going to make more mistakes than Luka, who's still I didn't know Luka was only 25 still. I thought if I had to guess, I would have said like 27 or something at this point. But he's still 20. Like he would still make the 25 and under team, which is crazy as of right now.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that Ant has had too many stinkers in a row for us to look at this playoff run, no matter how it ends, and call it super consistent. But I do think that at this point he has become due for a good game. Like it's just kind of how it works.
That's exactly how it works.
He cooked the Suns and it was great versus Denver, and he just couldn't maintain that pace, and now it's been bad. But he's not going to maintain this pace either, of where he's like, oh, he looks garbage, and it's like throwing the game away at the end. So I think that Ant is actually going to show out in Denver. Not in Denver, in Dallas. That would be my prediction. I don't know if they'll win both games or win the series, but I do think that Ant can't continue playing this bad. But
it definitely feels like if they can get a little bit better performance out of him, they can win. I mean, they haven't been far off, even though they're down 2-0.
No.
So we'll see tonight. I mean, the people listening already know how it went. He either probably played good and they won, and that's good, or that he played bad and now it's 3-0, and I mean that's as bad as.
And then he's really due for a good game.
And then he's really due.
They should. The T-Wolves should hope for another Ant stinker so he becomes maximum due for this 4-0 comeback.
So true.
Let's get into defensive tackles, though.
You want to?
Yes.
I do. Consensus list.
Right.
Each of us made our own list, and then we balanced the rankings from there. And we're going to start at 1 because that's more interesting than starting at 10.
It is. It is more interesting. Yeah. Consensus ranking, ranked choice voting, board account style. Let's do it. Our consensus number 1, Aaron Donald is retired, so that spot becomes available. And Chris Jones takes the title. Unanimous.
I would figure. I mean, he's just another beast, a pass rusher, right? His production from the interior is matched now by nobody, considering that Donald is out of the league. We've been talking about him and the Chiefs and how, they absolutely had to get an extension done for him. He is the leader of, a team that honestly, won the Super Bowl, and maybe won the Super Bowl because they had a better defense and offense. And he is the guy. He is the superstar in charge of that. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I think the attention you have to give him is up there with pretty much any defensive player in the NFL.
Yeah, he's hilarious. He's 6'6". His pad level is always the tallest on the line, and he's just cooking you anyway. Like, he's too strong, too many moves, just an unstoppable force on his way to the passer. And each playoffs, he puts the entire Chiefs team on his back and is a Hall of Famer, like, on what he's done so far in the league. Like, his career, I think, is far from over. But if he retired right now, he would be in contention for probably first ballot, I'd say, because of what he's done not only in the regular season but the postseason as well. I thought not this year but last year he should have been the defensive player of the year because he was
about to say that's the only thing he's missing at this point.
Is a depoy, yeah. And I don't know if he'll ever get there now that is this his age 30 season? I think so.
I think he's 29 currently, might be turning 30 for this season.
So we'll see if he ever takes home that hardware, but he's played at that caliber. Like last year, he, I think, was top at least 15 in terms of sacks from a defensive tackle all time last season. And that was with all the defensive attention of being really the only superstar on that line. Like, there are other guys who it's them and someone else, like Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead, or Nick Bosa and Hargrave and Armstead this last year, and Chase and Chase Young, right? Karlaftis is very nice, but really it's Chris Jones in that front seven that towers above everybody else in terms of the skill level that he's at, and it just doesn't seem to matter. I do think you could probably poke some holes in how he is as a run defender. He's not as impactful as a lot of or maybe even any of the other guys on this list. You can get him too far upfield at times. He's not gonna go feast in that area like a lot of other defensive tackles are, but it's just too valuable what he offers as a pass rusher. He's he's far and away the best now that Donald is gone. And yeah, I think he's well deserving of this number one spot for what he's done.
I was looking at his Wikipedia to see how old exactly he was. He's 29, turning 30 on July 3rd. And then my birthday is the next day.
Wow.
But
whoa.
What are the odds, dude? How is that even possible? That can't be a coincidence. But it says on his thing that he holds an NFL record for most consecutive games with a sack at 11. Is that true? That's the record,
Wikipedia.
11? It's on Wikipedia. It is, so it is definitely true. That feels incredibly low.
Oh, yeah. Rashawn Gary is beating that next year easily.
Dude, Derrick Brown is crushing that next year.
Derrick Brown is getting a sack in 11 straight games.
12. He's breaking it. But I thought that was interesting. That's a heck of a record to hold. He is definitely going to make the Hall of Fame. 3-time Super Bowl champ.
Yeah, it's just how fast he
between
makes
first
it.
and second. 5 Pro Bowls. It's like, man,
he's a mortal lock.
Mm-hmm.
I fear
a lot of credit to him, but I don't think it's not. I don't want to say it's like a total like non-discussion. I think there's a few guys here where it's like they could get themselves up there with a really strong season. But for now, with the success he's had and the impact he's had on a great team and his passer, like I'm going Jones at 1.
Yeah, there's one other guy who I put at number 2. There's 2 guys that I think are kind of getting close to his tier. But who's the consensus 2?
The consensus 2 is Dexter Lawrence, but it's really close between him and Quinnen Williams.
So I'm guessing you had Williams at 3 and me and Blaiden had, or you had Williams at 2 and me and Blaiden had him at 3, and then you had Lawrence at 3.
That's exactly how it was.
Okay. I mean, it's incredibly close. I think both those guys are pretty complete, pretty well-rounded players. Now, neither of them are the pass rusher that Chris Jones is, where you're getting up there with like pretty much any other player in the league in terms of just like how much you're getting to the quarterback. Maybe not in terms of sacks. I didn't see the exact sack numbers, and those are finicky, of course. But they're up there with pretty much any other defensive tackle, and they're also incredibly stout run defenders. I think Lawrence doing it at his size probably edges it out for me a little bit. I mean, Lawrence is like 330 something.
He's in.
He's the fact that he is able to be an effective pass rusher at that size. I mean, how many dudes in the history of the NFL have been able to do that? Well, maybe not the history of the NFL, but how many dudes are doing that? Not many. It's rare. Yeah. I mean, the power and the speed to even get to the QB at that point is pretty nuts. So I slightly go with him, but I don't have a strong feeling about it one way or the other.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with those 2 up to the last minute with my list here. It's crazy that Dexter Lawrence has been able to stand out like he has in his situation. Like, the Giants are the worst team in the league.
That's also true.
And he's a nose tackle. And yet still, when you look at the pressure leaders, it's like edge, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. And then it's like him. And he just sticks out like a sore thumb when you look at his body and the role that he plays. It's quite unbelievable.
It doesn't make any
sense.
Yeah.
However,
you got to give him credit. However,
with that being said, Quinnen Williams is also pretty unbelievable. I put him at number 1. I'm looking at the Next Gen Stats website right now, and they've got Williams first among defensive tackles in quarterback pressures. They've got him, where is it in pressure rate? Oh, didn't put a filter on, so number 1 in pressure rate is Rayshon Jenkins. That's not what I'm looking for.
And that's my number 4.
Hold on. Actually, we must have a conversation.
But anyway, at any rate, I think that those 2 in New York, it's tough to say because Quinnen, I think, has more of the pressure production based on that, but he's also not aligned as a nose tackle as much as Dex is. But the thing is, Quinnen, he lines up at nose like a lot. I kind of surprised me how often he was like a 0-1 or 2-eye Quinnen Williams, and the production there is insane. Like, it doesn't happen as much. He doesn't line up there. He moves around a bit more than Dexter Lawrence. But the fact that, like, if you aligned Quinnen Williams at nose tackle for a whole year, he'd probably have all the same pressure numbers and like all of that Dex does. He just is a little smaller, so I think he has the versatility to kick out more to D end and three
Yeah.
technique and stuff like that. So I think Quinnen Williams is about as well rounded as it gets at this point in the league. And that's why
Yeah.
I could kind of threaten Chris Jones for number one, because I think he could be a more productive run defender and match his pressure stuff. It's just like Quinnen doesn't have these signature playoff runs, right? Because he's on the Jets. I think that based on the what he's done the last two regular seasons, like it really isn't that crazy far away from Chris Jones, and neither has Dex. They're just on like dog shit teams, and Chris Jones is on the Chiefs. But I don't think that it's any kind of lock that they would get into the playoffs and do what Chris Jones does.
Yeah, I mean, all three of these guys are kind of in the tier of defensive leaders. They just and Quinnen Williams to almost sticks out more, and maybe this is the credit that you get, Theo, for putting him at 2 in the sense that it's almost like Myles Garrett, where they were able to build an elite defense around him. And yeah, they have other great guys there, but I mean, how many guys are you building elite defenses around? And it's not more than 10. And I think Quinnen probably falls in that 10.
I think Lawrence could as well. I also think that like Quinnen Williams is on a pretty elite defense. I mean,
he is. Like it helps
I can
that
think of
like
some
he's
other
got
players
sauce and
yeah, he does have sauce. No, but I think I get the argument. It's like Williams definitely a little bit more versatile, maybe produces a little bit more as a pass rusher, but Lawrence, it's like from where he produces a pass rusher, maybe he is sort of locked into that because of his size, but it's ridiculous that he's able to produce from there, and you might value that more depending on who you are. So I'm not mad at either way around, but I agree with it.
Yeah, I think the two of them are the tier 2 guys after Chris.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So that brings us to number 4, which, Matt, this is your guy, Derrick Brown.
And rightfully so. I think it's honestly, I'm gonna give a take. I think the tackles actually do tell you a story here. The fact that he got up to 100 tackles this season is completely ridiculous and speaks a lot on how much the Panthers asked him to do and how much he was able to do it. The Panthers' defensive line is pretty weak. They were switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Have some filler guys that they got. And they weren't super effective. Brown was asked to 2-gap a ton, and he's just such a beast at doing it. He is so effective with long arms and ability to read things out quickly, and just his overall strength. It's really, really tough to stop him from going where he wants to go, and he's usually right about where he wants to go. He's not some insane pass rusher, but he's also not a total nothing in that category. And you got to keep in mind the Panthers had him out there all the time, and they asked him to do everything, and he didn't have a ton of great support around him. So I'm not super stunned that he was limited to like, I think 40, 45 pressure, something around there, depending on who you ask and whatnot. This is him, to me, reaching his absolute ceiling this year, or not his ceiling, but him reaching like his potential, what he was billed to be when the Panthers picked him at 9 overall. And again, I hate to say this because now that he's off my team or whatever, I left this season thinking I'd rather have Brown than Burns, which is what I felt like. I feel like the debate between a lot of Panthers fans has been. So getting him back was absolutely a must. The Panthers defense, not that great, but would have been a whole hell of a lot worse without him. I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he did. I had him at 4.
Yeah, I mean, 100 tackles for a defensive lineman is fucking ridiculous. That a defensive tackle, even not just like a D end or something like that. He is super flexible for his size. Like for how big he is, he can like split a double really well and like contort himself to slip through the cracks like a much smaller player. And that's always my favorite part of watching him. But then the power, like he has a great bull rush. That's his primary method of getting to the quarterback. He's definitely not the pass rusher that like Chris Jones is or any of the other guys that we've talked about. But he can really collapse the pocket and he's explosive too. And can really fire off the ball and cause problems quickly. So, yeah, I think I wish I was more vocal on my Derrick Brown All-Pro train at the beginning of last season because I really thought it was like, man, the way he was playing at the end of last year, he could break out, and he did it fully. So, for my money, he's as good of a run defender as there is in the league with his size and his range and the way he's able to slip through the gaps. And yeah, the pass rush still probably could get taken to a higher level, and that's a scary thought. Yeah. He wasn't my number 4, though. I'll say that.
Who was your number 4? I mean, Blaiden, unless you have anything to add, I guess we can go
I know who Theo's number 4 was, and honestly, I should have done the same thing. The more that I think about it, yeah,
no, we should
have had these two flipped. All right, we had Derrick Brown as the consensus 4. But had I made the correct choice of putting DeForest Buckner at number 4, then it would have been the correct order.
We should have had Derrick Brown at 3 or 2. I'm sitting here regretting not putting him at 1.
Yeah, real talk. Man. I did it with Nick Chubb, so I mean, you should have been allowed. Nick Chubb. I did. I found this PFF article, and they were analyzing the Buckner trade back when it happened in 2020, and they were slandering the Colts so hard for it. They're like, they should have kept their draft pick, taken Jerry Jeudy, take Jeudy, take Henry Ruggs, and instead they've had arguably a top 3 defensive tackle over that time span since they've acquired him. He has been completely unreal. Just completely unreal.
He's a fantastic pass rusher, and he's right up there with pretty much anybody in terms of how long and how consistent he's been in doing it.
Yeah, I mean, since 2018, when he made his first Pro Bowl, it's been year after year a fantastic play. I think he's been undeniably top 10 over that length of time, and he's well-rounded too. Like he gets it done in the run game and the pass game. He's just Mr. Consistency. He really is, and he's so quick off the ball. He's got ideal length. He's got all the pass rush moves that you could want. I just think that he doesn't quite have the signature seasons of the top 3 guys that I listed. And then even Derrick Brown, like he doesn't have an accolade like, oh, he's a defensive tackle that reached 100 tackles. Like that's such a crazy number. But man, he had 81 this year and he had 11 tackles for loss. And he was a beast. He's nice.
He was my 5, so I'm not too mad at that. And I wouldn't be mad at it at all if it wasn't a Panthers player you guys were trashing. But the stat I had for him was that he's got 6 straight seasons of 9 sacks or better, which for a defensive tackle is pretty ridiculous. And sacks, again, they're not the best way to judge players because they're so up and down, hot and cold. Maybe you don't convert pressures great one year, the next year you do. But to get to 9, your low being 9 over a 6-year stretch, I think does actually speak pretty highly on the type of player you are, does speak well on it. So I 100% agree.
Yeah, if you want to know how difficult it is to get 9, Quinnen Williams, who I just raved about, who I think is about as good of a defensive tackle as you can be. He had 4.5 sacks last year, despite all the pressures. Like it's difficult to pile up the sacks from that interior defensive line position. But he's been able to do it year after year after year. The interior defensive line pressure rate by team starts with the New York Jets at 12%. So they've got the highest. That's not just Quinnen Williams, but obviously he's a huge part of that. Right. And then the next best team last year in terms of interior defensive lineman pressure rate is the Indianapolis Colts. And Grover Stewart is fantastic as well, but he's more of a run stuffer. The 1-2 punch of Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner is one I won't soon forget. I'll always think about that in terms of like best run stuffer, pass rusher combos from the interior. I love both of them so much. And Buckner is, I mean, that whole Colts pass rush was really fantastic last year. Like it was one of the best in the league.
It was a big reason why I thought they were going to be a playoff team going into the year. Is I was like, if they can get Kwity Paye to take a step, like they could have one of the nastiest pass rushes in all of football, straight up.
It'd be up there. I don't think it's a crazy take.
Yeah, so that's why I've got DeForest Buckner up there. Just the consistency, and then when you look at like the highs that he's able to hit, like. Yeah, it's not as high as Aaron Donald, but there's only really 2 or 3 guys in the league that really produce those type of eye-popping numbers, and I think he's the best of the rest. That's for sure.
Yeah, so Aaron Donald's like one of the best defensive linemen ever. So,
right,
if he were having those highs, he would be one of the best defensive linemen ever, probably.
I wonder if he'll ever get into the Hall of Fame, Buckner.
How many All-Pros does he have?
I was about to say, did he make the All-Pro this year?
He's got a first-team All-Pro, and he's got a second-team All-Pro. He's going to have a ton of... He has 61 sacks so far, and he's 29. So he could be an interesting case. I mean, he's been good for so long now that he might eventually get in. But
I think he's got a shot at it. I
I could see him being a finalist, like, at some point down the line, especially if he has a long career. If he can get to maybe like the 80 sack number, because he's at 61 right now, I think that would, and I don't see why he couldn't.
When it comes to your feet, eBay's got your back, because with eBay's authenticity guarantee, real experts are checking your sneakers, every stitch down to the sole. Me personally, I'm a big fan of a classic Air Force, or maybe a nice suede or leather boot, but whatever it is that you're adding to the lineup next, head to eBay. From the drop to your doorstep, eBay does not play with your sneaker game. Just look for that blue check mark. So ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit ebay.com for terms. Next up, number 6 is Justin Madubuike.
He had an amazing season.
He did. I was like, I'm looking through this list of guys to put in, and I'm like, man, Madubuike had a great year. Just the numbers are eye-popping, man. I think it's 14 sacks by PFF, and his just overall win rate was really high too, I thought. He was 12th in win rate. His total pressures was really high up there, 65 total pressures. I mean, just especially for a defensive line that wasn't really, it's not usually, you wouldn't think of it as like one guy doing all the work. You know, it's kind of this kind of group effort of, you know, just a bunch of guys. But Madubuike had a really strong season.
Yeah, and he had a great playoffs as well, I thought, despite the Ravens exit before the Super Bowl. Like he dominated against the Chiefs. And they have a really good interior, but he had like Trey Smith in hell that entire game. And that was really the one where it's like, okay, they got to pay this guy. Like this dude is one of the future cornerstones of the defensive tackle position. He was a project when they drafted him, and he's kind of hit that type of ceiling that everybody thought he might have, but just weren't sure. It's not easy to play in that Ravens system. There's a lot of different things that you have to memorize and learn, and like the level of coordination from everybody involved was insane. Like the detail that he was able to play with, and the timings the timing that he played with as like a looper or whatnot, like with Patrick Queen when he would crash in, and then like Madubuike would loop around. So on one hand, like it wasn't all like one-on-one wins for him. Like he got helped out by the scheme a little bit, but on the other hand, like it's difficult to execute those kind of complicated sim pressures and whatnot at the level that he did. And he has plenty of juice one-on-one, and the numbers speak for themselves. Like you said, Blaiden, 14 sacks per PFF.
You
they
can
don't
be
count
helped
the half
by
sack.
scheme. Yeah, I think he had 13 sacks by PFR. You can be helped by scheme, but when your numbers are that good, it gets to a point where you just deserve the credit. Like there are other guys I think that had some pretty good numbers. Kobe Turner's a guy that I give a lot of credit to that I didn't put on this list, just because I'm like, well, he had a lot of pressures and sacks where it took him a long time to get to the quarterback, and he's also playing next to Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald, that's the thing that kept him off my top 10 list.
But he was really productive too, right? But he was really productive too, because I wanted to give him a lot of credit. But Madubuike, yeah, you gotta give him the credit he deserves.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I do think some of it was helped and created by stunts and whatnot. But certainly it's not like if you asked him to never do that, all of a sudden, like, he wouldn't produce at all.
Yeah, and the numbers just got so good. Like, how many defensive tackles ever have had like a 13 sack season? It's a decent list, but it's not a ton of people. So no matter how you get it done, when you have per PFR 33 quarterback hits, that's an insane number.
That is ridiculous.
And 13 sacks, and you had a great playoffs. Like, man, it's like, okay, dude, you're part of the club now. You're one of the elite producers now. So yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, man. Jeez, 33 QB hits. That is completely nuts.
What is that? Two times a game, man. He comes in and hits your quarterback. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Number 7 is Jeffery Simmons. He was kind of a tough guy to rank, I feel like.
He didn't have he has not had that insane season that I'd hoped that he has had. Like, he's been very good for a long time now. Yeah. But I'm still waiting for maybe that just insane eye-popping year, because he has the tools for it. Like, he's so sturdy. His explosiveness off the line is second to none, I think. Like, when the ball gets snapped and he flies off the line of scrimmage, like, I don't think there are many defensive linemen more explosive than him in that regard. And the size and the balance and the explosiveness makes him just an absolute wrecking ball. But he does still, I think, need to get just a bit more nuanced with his pass rushing arsenal, like a Quinnen Williams, because it's like, I think he has all the tools, but we haven't seen that full, like, unbelievable breakout yet that I hoped for.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like 2 years ago, it really felt like, okay, he might go and be like a defensive player of the year type candidate. I think at one point we were talking about him as like a sleeper for it, or we didn't even feel like it was a sleeper. I think we did one of our like drafts that we do for the award.
I remember this, yeah.
And I think one of us picked Simmons, and the rest of us were like, yeah, that makes sense. And he just hasn't had that season. It doesn't mean it's not necessarily coming. And I think he was a little banged up last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he only played in 12 games, and he still had 5.5 sacks. So that's
right.
So it wasn't a bad year whatsoever. But.
Right.
But I feel like everybody we've talked about here has either had an insane season or has done it for a super long time. Like, he's only below guys who are also really, 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 really good. So yeah, I think 7 is a very valid spot for him.
I think I had him above Madubuike. Still, like, Madubuike just had a season with production that we haven't seen from Simmons yet, but I still put Simmons above him just because Simmons he was second team All-Pro two years in a row before this, despite not having that caliber of season. He's still piled up some accolades, and he is still an elite run defender and pass rusher. Like, he is not just one thing. So if he didn't get banged up this season and like closed it strong, who knows? Because he was on pace certainly for a good year before it got cut short in December.
That's true.
It's not all disappointing with him, but I think he tweeted like, I got to be better next year. And I think Titans fans would agree. Like, they're waiting for the best of him, and he's still only 26. So he's still got a lot of time.
I don't know. You just talk about like guys that are supposed to be centerpieces of a defense, and Jeffery Simmons is someone that you hope and expect to be that.
He is the centerpiece of their defense, but their defense just hasn't been, as good as the Jets, right? With Quinnen Williams as the centerpiece, and he hasn't had.
But even Dex, like, he hasn't been Dex.
No, he hasn't been Dex.
Right. So that would be like the standard, I feel like, if you're gonna hold Simmons to anything. But
Yeah, and maybe it's
maybe
the
that's
like the
unfair.
secondary in Tennessee has been like so bad. Like maybe they just need L'Jarius Sneed to like be clamps, and he'll like get an extra 2 sacks and hit the double-digit mark, and it'll be his best year. He'll get an extra coverage sack here and there, and have the type of numbers that warrant a top 5 ranking on next year's list.
Right.
Yeah. So that brings us to number 8, Jonathan Allen.
I honestly have to go back and look what happened to him last year, because like PFF thought he was dog shit.
No, I was literally thinking.
But I don't think that he was. I don't think that is true of Jonathan
No.
Allen.
I would wonder if the edge rushing unit becoming a disaster in the middle of the season possibly hurt him, because who were Washington's 2 starting edge rushers after the deadline? I'm asking this because
I don't even know, and I think I did a Washington like franchise with my friend one time, so I think I've like played with these people and still don't know.
Looking up the Commanders depth chart right now.
I'm gonna be really mad if it's like a name I should know.
It's not. It's definitely not. Maybe now it is, but like last year it wasn't. Doris Armstrong is there now, and Dante Fowler,
Armstrong.
But they weren't there last year.
Was
it was like
Cleveland
F.A.
Farrell
Adult.
there last year? No,
I don't think so. I
right?
think he was on the 49ers. I think it was F.A. Abada and like I don't know.
Point is, don't feel bad if you didn't know who they were.
Allen has a long enough track record to make up for it, was my thought.
Yes.
And maybe it's almost kind of like a Simmons thing where it's like, I'm not going to put him over guys who are coming off of really strong seasons or didn't just have kind of a down tick. But he's certainly in that mix in terms of just, he's put up a lot of years of being a very capable pass rusher and a very strong run defender. And there's just not that many guys who can do that in the interior. There's just a very short number, or a very small number.
How could I forget about Casey Toohill? And KJ Henry.
KJ Henry is a crazy miss.
And I think that Jonathan Allen is. I'll have to maybe go back and look if PFF was onto something about his struggles, but they must have been able to key on him something crazy. He's been an elite run defender since he was drafted, and recently I think he's developed into an insane power rusher as well. He's one of the few guys who will break out the hump move like Reggie White, where he'll like get upfield and then just like shoulder check someone off of him, like just kind of throw him upfield and get to the quarterback. So he's got that signature move. We're 1 year removed from him being the most productive pass rusher in terms of pressures in the sport. Like he was pretty ridiculous back in 2020, I believe, with how many pressures he had. Let's see, I can pull it up real quick. He was in the top 10. And these numbers are always kind of wacky when you look from website to website. But the one I'm looking at on Next Gen Stats had him at 47 last year, which was in the top 10. So that it's not like, we haven't seen him play at a elite level in a long time. Like, okay, it was in 2022, he was really good. In 2023, his edge rushers got traded away, and he couldn't pick up the slack on a horrible defense. So I think that, I mean, the edge rush situation isn't great for Washington, but I think that he's by himself someone
There's
that
levels
I'd want to
bad.
build around. Yeah, I would want to build around. I still want to build around. If I could pick any defensive tackle in the league, like he would still be way up there. So
Absolutely. So does that bring us to number 9? I think so. And that would be Christian Wilkins. New Raider. Man.
Yeah, he has some games where it seems like there's 2 of him out there.
I agree. I mean, this is kind of another guy where he's pass rushing at a pretty insane level for somebody on the interior. I think he got around 60 pressures or so, which probably doesn't sound like a ridiculous amount considering you're talking about edge last episode and those guys can get way up there. But I think he was like top 5 or 6 or 10 and pressures this year. And he's definitely a guy who has like really, really huge disrupting games and can really take over and just change the math overall. And there was a lot of production overall from I feel like Miami's interior, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for the amount of attention that he was receiving. I feel like teams really had to go out of their way to game plan against him, and he really cleans up against one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, I think he's going to be able to have a season this year in Vegas where he might get top 5, top 3 conversations, being with Max Crosby now, which I guess he had Phillips and.
Yeah, he's not really getting an upgrade in terms of the defensive line personnel around him. I was
thinking that he was, but.
No, it was pretty sweet last year for them, but he was third in pressures from what I'm looking at. Quinnen Williams for the defensive line group. I'm looking at it. He's number 1. And then number 2, it's Zach Allen from Denver, which shout out to him. I didn't put him on the list, but maybe I overlooked. And then it's Christian Wilkins, number 3 with 58. And Zach Allen had 4 sacks, whereas Christian Wilkins had 9, right? So that's definitely means something as well. Yeah, he is super active. He is one of the defensive tackles that probably runs the most, and he can make tackles like way down the field to save what could be even bigger plays. And he can really surf the line of scrimmage east and west and make plays in spots you would think like a defensive tackle never could. Now, I will say I was a little bit disappointed in his playoff performance against the Chiefs compared to a guy like Madubuike. Trey Smith put him on his ass like several times in that game in run defense. He is a little bit on the lighter side, so he's not maybe as much of a positive in that area as some of the other guys on this list. Maybe that's why Miami felt comfortable, letting him walk. But still, as a pass rusher and like his overall production like against the run, even if it's not always behind the line of scrimmage, is still pretty great. So I think that it's valid. I mean, what is he? Is he the highest paid defensive tackle like of all time because he hit free agency?
Well, Jones got that big.
You're right.
He's up there though, I'm sure.
He's going to be up there. Yeah. He's definitely higher than 8 in terms of.
Right.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
You muted yourself again.
Sorry, I got a new mic because my old one wasn't working great. So it's got a weird. I gotta adjust to this new mute button location. See how I got the glowing stripe here on my mic? You guys don't have anything like that.
That's kind of like maybe.
I feel like you're kind of like a
gamer setup type deal.
Oh
yes.
Oh my god.
Yes,
we're so in sync, man.
So that's really good for you, man.
Yeah, I'm just more professional,
Right. I mean, yeah.
Me with my XLR cable going into my audio interface, and yeah,
and me with my just normal mic.
Just getting it done. Yeah, you've never pulled the auxiliary cord out of the back of it and had like the port come out with it.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, I unplugged it one morning and like the actual like part of the mic that accepts the cord came out with it. I was like, what?
Dude,
what the hell?
You know what? Here's the thing. My port is like fighting for its life. It's like all crooked.
It'll happen to you. And the thing is, like, I had to go to Guitar Center because I had to upload my Carson Beck video that day because it had been too long anyway. It's like, shit, God. I gotta get this done. And then I checked where can I get a Shure microphone because they're the best for podcasting, I think. And the answer was Guitar Center. I was like, okay, what time do they open? 11 a.m. It was like 6:45 when I tried to start this, and I was like, I gotta wait like 4 or 5 hours for this musician store. Like these musicians got to lock in and stop partying all night for their stores to be open like damn near at noon. You can round up. It's like, holy, I need it now. Why doesn't this open at like 9? Like
you're telling me there wasn't a single electronics store closer to you than the Guitar Center?
Not that I could find. I went to Best Buy and they didn't have a Shure microphone. They had like the Yetis, which I don't like as much.
Don't get it. Yeah, if you got a Yeti, I would have made fun of you.
It sounds good. The mic sounds good. I didn't even know that you were using a different mic.
I mean, it should sound better than my old one because it's like the 2.0, which is why it has this glowing shit. But apparently,
they just put a gamer light on there and upcharge you 50 schmucks, and you fell for it. That's tough.
Not 50 schmucks. But now I got the 3-year protection plan on this mic, so I don't know.
So they upcharged you another $250, man. It's over.
That was $7. It was $70 for the 3-year protection.
Okay.
70 schmucks.
Bro paid $500 for his microphone.
I did not. Well, I definitely paid more than I was expecting to pay when I woke up that fine morning.
Yeah, which was $0 is what you were expecting.
I was hoping to pay,
$0.
But instead I dropped.
That's okay.
A lot more than that, but it will be a tax write-off, right? This is a business expense.
Right.
A tax
you get it for free.
Is a bit. Yeah, it is a free mic.
That's boy math for you. If it's a tax write-off, it's free.
No doubt.
Where were we on the list?
We had just done Christian Wilkins, which was 9, which brings us to number 10. And Theo, I feel like you might be carrying this a little bit, but Vita Vea was number 10.
Where did I have Vita Vea on mine? I thought I put him on there.
Matt, actually, yeah, Matt, you had him at 10. Theo, you had him at 9. I had him as an honorable mention. So
yeah, that's fair. He's like, he doesn't quite have the pass rushing productivity that like Dexter Lawrence does, but like as a gap eater, I mean, how many big guys come out of college football like nose tackles, Sweat, Jordan Davis recently are examples that come to mind, and we're hoping they turn into Vita Vea, right? Like that's a guy who can play a ton of snaps for you, like erase both A gaps if he wants to, and even get into the B or C, like surfing the line of scrimmage. And he certainly has some juice as a pass rusher, more than like, I don't know, maybe like Vince Wilfork at the end of his days or something like that. He's got a little something to him. So I love the big nose tackles. I love the big run stuffers. I think that they need their respect as well. So I went with Vita Vea over a name like Hargrave
I will say, I'm looking at the point totals, and it's actually a tie for number 10.
Oh.
Who else?
DJ Reader.
And Reader's kind of in that same category. I know he's not coming off his greatest season ever, and he got banged up at the end. But he's still one of the best run defenders in the NFL at his position. And he's still been a huge part of a great defense for a long time. I think he deserves a ton of credit. And honestly, like, I'm really excited about what him and McNeil are going to do in the run game next year. I think that's going to be a pretty nasty combo.
Yeah, it's going to be horrific as a Packer fan. It's not going to be fun dealing with those two. I just watched a Cincinnati game, and Reader, I can't remember who I was watching them against. Maybe the Seahawks. It was the Seahawks, who don't have the greatest guards, but it was good to watch a game of Reader like just wrecking shop in the running game again. So he's coming off an injury, and I don't know if he's quite as like Vita Vea is just so good that I don't know if he's quite as good as Vita Vea in the running game. But I'm not ever going to be mad at DJ Reader respect. But yeah,
we'll say
I'm glad the run stuffers are getting their
consider since the Google sheet put Vea ahead. We'll give Reader the honorable mention.
All right, Google sheet algorithm tiebreaker. Sorry, Reader, but I do like the Reader respect. I mean, yeah, we've been about as high as a sports podcast can be on DJ Reader tackle. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think any national. I think we talk more about DJ Reader than probably like most Bengals podcasts do, and we cover like the NFL and the little
even
NBA.
Like DJ Reader's like his parents would be like, yeah, they're giving him enough respect. like they.
DJ Reader is like, stop the dick riding.
It's gonna be like when Jalen Hurts' mom commented on the YouTube video I made.
That's such a classic, dude.
It is a classic.
I hope she thinks about. I hope she still thinks about that the Stay Hot account was giving Jalen Hurts props before the breakout.
Facts. Before the MVP.
That might be your all-time best take. Like, it didn't end up. It was like Jalen Hurts is going to win MVP, and then he didn't actually end up winning it. He was second. But that was a pretty wild call.
It was a crazy outlier. Like, there was no shot of the. Like, I don't know where that would have.
It was like, that's right, and it was right,
and it was right, and that's what DJ Reader's parents are thinking right now. You know,
They are.
You were running
When he makes
like,
all pro next year.
you were running like mom level bias towards Jalen Hurts, and you nailed it, dude. And you were right.
It's crazy, insane mob level bias. Some other honorable mentions. Jalen Carter made the list here. There were points last year where he was completely wrecking
really
shop.
Good, and there were points where he was really not. I think he's going to put it all together sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Just what he can do. I mean, you know why he was such a highly regarded prospect, and
right,
could have gone number 1 overall in a different world. And his speed and his power at his size is ridiculous. He's another guy who can make plays in a really wide range that a lot of other dudes his size just can't, and he can win in a lot of different ways. There's hand fighting wins. There's times where he's dipping under dudes. There's times where he's bull rushing guys. So when he just gets more consistent with that stuff, I mean, he could be as good as any other defensive tackle in the NFL. But he's not quite there after one season, which isn't a shocker.
Yeah, he's extremely electric. One-on-one, like, how do you deal with that combination of speed? Really, that's always the thing that stands out the most to me about him is the speed at which he does everything. Like,
right.
Imagine if you took all the moves like Madubuike has and then like turned them up a little bit, like, so they're faster, right? And but the consistency with what you're talking about on the field, off the field, like getting his habits right. I feel like he had some weird like meltdown last year with John Feliciano on the sideline, like didn't work his way into the starting lineup to put up crazy numbers. All of last year, he was still kind of working behind some other guys, which, he's a rookie and the Eagles defensive line is very deep. I don't think he's like backup caliber. Clearly I had to throw him the honorable mention because of his efficiency last year and what I believe he's capable of. But yeah, in terms of putting it all together, he hasn't done it yet, so he's not on the list yet.
But he has the potential to be way up there.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I look at a lot of these defensive tackles. I was kind of looking at their career stats, and it seems like even for dudes who are really hype, it takes a little bit. It's not an instant thing at this position. There is a learning curve. I mean, like Quinnen Williams coming out of the draft was incredibly hyped and didn't really start to hit like his what's the word I'm looking for? His expectations until a little bit later. Same thing with Derrick Brown.
Yeah, Dex.
Like Derrick Brown was picked at the exact same position, and he wasn't really like. There were points, I mean, even in year 2 where it's like, oh man, he might not even be like that good. And he came around eventually. So it's not surprising at all. He's better than most guys his age. He's better than almost all of guys his age. But until he actually does take that step into being, in the tier that he can be, I think I had him at 11. He's our first or second honorable mention. I think that's pretty fair.
And then Theo, you had Kenny Clark on here.
Bang.
Which I think it's fair for a little bit of Packers bias, but he's
a great defensive tackle. I mean, he's been top 10-ish for like a long time now. I think you could go back to probably the 2019 season and say he could have been top 10 then, and it's been consistent as a bit of an undersized nose, someone who can kind of play both of those positions, nose and 3 technique, and get it done against the run and the pass. He's got every move in the book in his bag, and really, if he was a little bit bigger, probably he might be top 5 every single year. But he's not. But he still gets it done. He still gets it done every single season.
I'll say my introduction to Kenny Clark as a player was in Madden. I would try and run inside zone against the Green Bay Packers, and he would just instant shed against the center. And then I'm like, well, he must be good in real life.
That was the Minnesota Vikings experience in the 33-10 win. He cooked them. I remember that was probably his signature game this year, but he's had a couple great performances, and on a defense, right, that's pretty unspectacular as well. Although they've got good defensive linemen around him, you'd think. I'm very interested to see how Devon. Now I'm going on a Packers tangent, but when I was looking at all these defensive tackle stats and numbers and whatnot, it's very interesting how high Devonte Wyatt ranks in them all. He's a horrible tackler, so like none of them converted to sacks, and he was actually very frustrating, like in that regard. But when you look at his pressure rates, it's very high. I'll be interested to keep an eye on him.
I remember you were very upset when they drafted him, so.
I was, and he's got to start like tackling people before he proves me wrong. But he was beating people last year. But
I mean, that's a start, you know.
It is a
start somewhere.
Any other honorable mentions?
There's also Javon Hargrave. Well,
it's a valid shout.
I didn't put any Browns. I thought about. I want to at least talk about. I'm now blanking on the name.
There's no one they have that should be top 10.
What do you? No, not top 10. But who was their nose tackle last year? They got from Minnesota.
Tomlinson.
Tomlinson. I wanted to at least like think about Tomlinson because,
well, you've thought
because
about
he's
him.
just because he's just such
okay, well, what's your argument for him being top 10?
I think my argument would be that even though he doesn't produce at the level that some of these other guys do, you have to account for the fact that he can open so much stuff up for other people, and that's just something that you can't quantify. Like his ability
He's
to
a
absorb
good starter, but like everybody on this list, that's true for. Like Zach.
Yeah, so I didn't even give him an honorable mention. I thought, but now that you bring up Browns players,
then he's really not top 10 if you're not giving him an honorable.
I didn't give him an honorable mention, but I thought about it.
But he should be in the honorable mention conversation. There should be a dialogue about the potential honorable mention that Dalvin Tomlinson is.
That's true,
or could be.
But Hargrave was an actual honorable mention.
Yeah, I mean,
he's one of the best pass rushers last year.
Pass rushers, yeah. Mm-hmm. He's an incredible hand fighter. I feel like he really reacts well to where people are trying to shoot their hands and grab him or push him away. I feel like that's one of his strong suits, or he'll kind of like hesitate and get people off balance or off guard. He's super good.
Was there no Ed Oliver and Christian Barmore honorable mention?
I will say
those were my 13
I had Christian Barmore written down, and I legitimately think that we need to start having the Christian Barmore conversation. That guy's good. That guy's really good. I was thinking, I was like, I know I gave Christian Barmore some praises last year. So I'm like looking back through my tweets, and I was doing like my FanDuel spotlights, and I had him as my trenches player of the week in week 16 when he had 8 tackles, 4 QB hits, 3 sacks. It was actually his first multi-sack game of his whole career. But
the game against Denver?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice game.
He completely wrecked shop that game.
Yeah, I think it could be good for the Patriots to get this deal done sooner rather than later. Because I remember watching him in Alabama, and I've had stock in Christian Barmore for a while. Because I made a video years ago now that I said, like, he might be the best defensive player in this class. And he ended up being a second-round pick.
That's a bold take.
It was a bold take. But he was really, really disruptive at Alabama. And now with Belichick, or not Belichick anymore, but in New England, that continued, and he is kind of got that Chris Jonesy type of build where I think he plays a little bit high, but is able to kind of arm over everybody and still overpower them. And he deflected a ton of passes last year, which was also super underrated in terms of his impact. So Barmore, I don't know if I put him on. I put Clark and Carter, but I should have put Barmore and Kobe
Turner. Barmore and Kobe Turner are the guys for me that I'm like.
It's a lot of dudes who are fighting for that 10 spot. You know, there's a lot of good defensive tackles.
Okay, I have a tweet in March of 2021 saying that the Cowboys should consider interior defensive line at 10 instead of Surtain and Farley, and that they should consider Christian Barmore.
Okay.
So
that's a
I was
right
call,
there. They should have taken Surtain.
They should have taken Surtain. Yeah, no,
I also think they took Parsons in that draft.
They might have. I feel like I wasn't very high on
Mr.
Parsons.
Tandraft?
I don't.
They missed out on Surtain and Horn, and then they ended up with Parsons. I'm pretty certain that's what happened.
Okay, you might be. Yeah, I think you're right. So it worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. He was a linebacker at the time.
But of the guys that I was referring, they would have rather have had Surtain than Barmore.
Still, though, it's good to get those Christian Barmore receipts up, because I do think that he broke out last year, and we'll see. Some guys get paid and then don't replicate
That's
it.
true.
Like who is the Washington guy that got paid and didn't have quite the same type of season this
Payne.
past year? Yeah.
Yeah.
So who knows? But Ed Oliver is really consistently good, so he probably deserves
Ed Oliver's
that.
another guy. So there's like that's probably what
Definite shout.
16, 17 guys that are in that contention.
Yeah, Sealer is really good as well, I think, and Eric Armstead we haven't given a shout out to. Leonard Williams I think is pretty good as well. There's probably some
It's
run
a tough
defenders
list
that
to
I'm
make.
thinking.
This is probably one of the hardest lists we've had to make yet.
Yeah,
So-
it's a really good era for defensive tackles, and I think we've said that a lot on this show and whatnot. I think it's as deep as any position right now, and I think it's getting deeper. It feels like I think now we got Newton coming in, who I think is going to be really good, and Byron Murphy, and I think there's some dudes who could break out next year. Cansey was really, really good next to Vita Vea last year, despite how small he was. I think he's going to prove me wrong.
Don't forget Wingo, Theo. Don't forget Wingo.
Wingo's going to follow in his footsteps, being the exact same way. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to get any easier to rank these guys.
And then, of course, Fisk. While we're on the topic of Wingo,
Fisk is an edge rusher, dude. What are you talking about?
That's right.
Aleem
that's right,
McNeil, we mentioned him earlier.
McNeil, I really almost put up there too.
Yeah, same.
And then him and Reader
at Pittsburgh. Nice.
Yeah.
Carl
It's a
Brooks
lot of
too.
guys. It's a lot of guys.
It's a lot of guys. It's a good group. But I think that's pretty much it for the defensive tackles. We'll keep doing some more positions. We're kind of getting down to it as far as the positions that we can do. But it should be a good stretch. We're back in the saddle. I don't think we're going anywhere else for the foreseeable future, unless I'm unaware of anything, Matt. Maybe you'll take your birthday off.
I am actually going a lot of places in June, but it's like home for my sister's graduation.
Okay.
And like nowhere that I think I can't record from. So
I'm going somewhere. Okay. I'm going home.
Hey,
man.
As far as I'm concerned, we're all going somewhere to the top.
Right. All right. Well, that'll do it for another episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in. For my co-hosts, Matt and Blaiden, this is Theo Ash bidding adieu for another episode. I'll catch you all on the flippity flop.
He said it! He did the thing!